It's 5 o'clock straight up. Welcome to the Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design Meeting, November 4th, 2020, 5 o'clock. We have an agenda with 4 items on it tonight. So with that said, we'll get started.
Is that up to me now?
No, I'll get the
Okay.
first slide going here. So virtual meeting protocol. Staff will control the slides displayed throughout the meeting. Applicants, staff, board members, and members of the public should give their name first whenever speaking. Applicants and members of the public must be sworn in before speaking for the first time. Only attendees who have registered to speak before the deadline at noon today may speak during the meeting. Video and microphone have been disabled for all attendees. Attendees will only be given the capabilities to speak when they are called on during the public comment period. Board members who need to recuse themselves from voting will be temporarily removed from the meeting and readmitted prior to addressing the next item. And we do have a case tonight that will occur. If the board needs to go into executive session, they will call into a separate conference line, and all video and audio and Zoom will be temporarily turned off until they are ready to return to the regular meeting. Chat has been disabled for everyone. And of course, this meeting is public and is being recorded. With that, I'll turn it over to our chairperson, Joel Adrian. Joel, you need to unmute yourself.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. This is the November 4th, 2020 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Amanda Barton, Nell Postel, Paula Murphy, myself, Joel Adrian. Present from the planning staff for Eric Schultz and Lee Batchelder. And these proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, usually the Board of Zoning Appeals treats the matter as being uncontested and passes it as a matter of course. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do 3 things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And 3, grant variances to the ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54(9)24 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And finally, D, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. With that, it'll go back to Eric.
Very good. Thank you, Joel. The order on each application. The chair announces each application followed by staff presentation and recommendation. Staff will call on applicant to present their application after being sworn in by the chair. Staff will open the public comment period to receive comments from registered attendees in favor. First spoken, then written. Each speaker will be sworn in by the chair. Staff will then recognize attendees for public comment in opposition after speaker is sworn in, first spoken, then written. Staff will recognize the applicant for a short rebuttal, and then the chair will then close the public comment period and begin board discussion. So providing comment, if you submit it a request to speak on an item before the deadline, staff will call your name when it is your turn to speak and enable your microphone. Your microphone will be disabled after you are done speaking, and you may only speak once for each item, and you must state your name and address for the record, or you will not be permitted to provide comment. So, board discussion. Following public comment period, board members can make comments, ask questions, and make motions. After a motion and second, board members will vote aye in favor or nay not in favor. If the vote is not unanimous, the chair will poll each member for their vote. The chairman shall announce the vote on the motion and the final decision on the application. If a board member again needs to recuse, he'll be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back into the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into executive session, they will call into a separate conference line, and all video and audio on Zoom will be temporarily turned off until they are ready to return to the regular meeting. So very good. With that said, we'll get started. Mr. Joel.
So just for the record, I think we need to let everybody know that Andrew Hargett and Jeff Webb have joined the meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, for that.
And we will go to application B1, which is 3467 Maybank Highway on Johns Island. The TMS is 279-00-00309 and 677. I do not have the sheet in front of me, Eric, that has the application number.
Yes, that's okay. I'll name that once you get done.
Okay, and it is a request of variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Request a special exception from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree, zone PUD.
And the application number is 2011-04-B1. And with that said, we'll need to identify the applicants. So we have Mr. Trey Linton and Ward Mungo. So we'll get those folks lined up. All right, and now for the staff presentation. So this is the application and their explanation of how they meet the hardship and special exception. This is a site, I added 2 sites. It's basically the site that fronts on Maybank Highway, but the access is through a parking lot of the existing Sea Island Comprehensive Health Care Facility. It is part of the Angel Oak PUD, and it recently went through an amendment to shift some residential units to that lot of record that fronts on Maybank Highway, the one that is not shown in the blue dash in front of it. This is an aerial showing the existing Sea Island Comprehensive Health. There's a partially wooded site out front, manicured lawn, and then some forested area. The board may recall that this was in front of the board several months ago. If you have a very good memory, this is a project that can be viewed as a replacement project. There are existing residential units across the street that are very dated, and the plan is to build this facility, and then those units across the street will be demolished and that site will be redeveloped. So it's kind of a phased thing here, a phased development. The original application addressed a few tree removals, but it was one large building that paralleled Maybank Highway. So Plan North, if you will. And I apologize, I should have maybe brought that exhibit up. But when it entered the DRB process, it was really felt by that board that the massing of that building had to be broken up. And the result was to split the building into 2 buildings, add a clubhouse facility for the residents. They addressed the architecture. So these are smaller buildings pitched roofs. So maybe fitting a little bit better into the context of this section of Maybank Highway. So with doing so and trying to meet the required parking and circulation needs, you can see that there are 2 trees identified on Plan South in red. One is a 24.5-inch water oak, and the other is a 32-inch laurel oak. The laurel oak is at the corner of the structure, and the water oak is in the proposed parking area. This is a blow up of the area. I took that plan and just blew it up for you so you could clearly understand the position of the trees. The laurel oak is outside the footprint, but it's crown, and then the condition of that tree really causes an issue. Plan left, we're trying to provide a buffer, not a required buffer necessarily, but a buffer against the church that is west of the project. So the grade differential was a concern of mine as well as the project engineer. The parking lot for the Sea Island, you can see the bus park there is 3 to 4 feet lower than the tree. And when you cut a driveway in, I think the root system was going to be impacted. It's a double leader water oak. It's got a lot of dead limbs in the crown. I tried to get a photograph that kind of picked that up. So there's dieback, and I graded it a D. The laurel oak, which is in the forested area, has very strange water sprouting on the trunk. You can see the vertical small water sprouts all over the trunk, and that's usually an indication of interior decay or something going on where the tree is trying to compensate and shoot out or send out new lateral limbs, if you will, to maintain itself. And then again, the crown is not the best. I graded that one a D. So staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 37.5 caliber inches of recommended native canopy trees on the project site. Must use 4-foot chain link fence for the tree protection. I'll go back to the site plan and just refresh your memory. There's a really gorgeous live oak that's being featured in the center of the site. So 4-foot chain link fence. And I must have a certified arborist treat all trees. Boy, I really messed up that. Must have certified treat all protected and grand trees to be preserved within 25 feet of any construction. So I just want to go back to this plan. Again, when the engineer asked me to go back and look at these trees, they had parking pretty much on top of that live oak in the center by the clubhouse. I asked that quite a few spaces be removed, and they kind of shifted things around. But that's the prize tree on the site. And of course, the perimeter trees along Maybank with the meandering path and a tree that they're notching the building out on the east side of the building. So with that said, I'll turn it back to you, Joel.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. The applicant is present and unmuted.
Yes, this is Trey Linton with Forsberg Engineering speaking.
Okay. Let me swear you in, and then we can start with you. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Excellent. So I guess, Eric, do we have anybody that's opposed to the application?
No, Mr. Chair, nobody signed up to speak in opposition or in support.
Okay. All right. So then, Trey, if there is anything you'd like to add, the floor is yours. Thank
you. Just very brief comments. Eric touched on it earlier about the DRB. The architectural design team had to go in front of the DRB board 3 times in order to get conceptual DRB approval. And with that, that kind of affected our site plan. And that's why we're here this evening. And I'm available to answer any other questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else that wants to speak? I see there's Ward. Is that for this application?
Well, hi, just for the record, Ward Mungo, 2205 Ramsey Street.
Okay. Did you want to speak or no?
There's really nothing to add.
Okay. All right. Then we're going to close this application to the public, and we will open it to the board for discussion, questions, or a motion.
I think it's actually a big improvement on the site plan from the original building. And
I agree.
And I think that the really nice live oak is being featured better. So I'm good with it. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say.
Those trees have reached their maximum age. They're not in great shape. They're not going to be an asset to the site in the future anyway. So I'm with you.
Okay. I make a motion that we move for approval with staff recommendations properly typed.
I'll second that.
All right. So the motion is for staff approval, or for approval with staff recommendations. Motion is by Ms. Barton and seconded by Mr. Hargett. I will go through the roll, and you can say aye in favor or nay not in favor. Ms. Barton,
Aye in favor.
Ms. Postel,
Aye in favor.
Ms. Murphy, Paula. She's here, right?
Yeah, she's
Oh,
muted.
thumbs up. Okay. All right. Mr. Hargett,
Aye in favor.
Mr. Webb,
Aye in favor.
and Chairman Adrian is also an aye in favor. So it's unanimous, 6-0. Motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to go to item B2, and that is 116 and 118 Cannon Street. The TMS numbers are 460-1104-163 and 164. It is request a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 2 protected trees. Request a variance from section 54-330 to allow a reduced impervious surface setback near the base of 1 grand tree zoned LB. And Eric, it's to you.
Very good. The application number is 2011-04-B2. This is the application submitted. This is 116, 118 Cannon Street. Both are zoned LB. 116 Cannon Street is under renovation today as we speak, and they also got approval to put an addition on the rear, and the driveway, as you can see, is on the west side. And then 118 is, has a principal building and then a very large parking area to the rear. The project is to build a subordinate, if you will, structure in the back to add a few residential units. And you can see that it's going to parallel the rear property line and utilize the driveway west of 116 for the ingress, and then the driveway west of 118 would be the egress lane. And based on the number of units, they have the parking shown, and you can see that there's 2 what I would consider volunteer trees. One is a mulberry on the rear property line, if you will, and then a laurel oak further down the fence line. The elm is a very large elm, and it's acclimated to a lot of traffic over its root system. You'll see that in just a moment. So there's the 16-inch mulberry, the 14-inch laurel oak, and then you can see on the left image or the right image, the elm that's close to that stair tower where, these backyards have been parked on, and then you can just see the addition going on the back of 116. The fence would come down, obviously, for circulation purposes. Again, some existing conditions. Staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 10 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site, must have a certified arborist treat the grand elm, and must use a non-invasive pervious driveway surface system within the TPZ, that's the tree protection zone of the elm. So, they'll have to provide a wearing surface for the parking spaces, but maybe a decorative apron as you come off Cannon, but around the tree we'll go with a very sensitive on grade, basically no excavation surface, whether it be gravel as you see or some other surface, but very non-invasive. So with that said, we need to identify our applicant, Mr. Matt Klein. And I'm not, Ashley, I don't see Ashley with us.
I'm here, Ashley Bays.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Ashley Bays.
Hi there.
Very good. So, yes.
Thanks, Eric. This is Matt.
All right.
Klein,
Okay. Hey,
Hold on. Yep.
Matthew, let me swear both of y'all in if you're going to speak. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
I do. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead if you state
No
your
worries.
name and address, and then if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Joel. This is Matt Klein, 557 King Street. This is a project that they have started the renovation. Eric is exactly correct. With regard to the grand tree and the gravel area, the current proposed plan shows a gravel, actually limiting the current gravel, and the reason why we're doing what we're doing to try to keep the parking on the one lot is Julia is working to keep a green space area between the two buildings on 116 Cannon. So at the end of the day, the area that's not used between the two structures on 116 Cannon is intended to be saved for as much green space as possible. It's currently a hard packed gravel parking area that will be used for green space, but the existing driveway is intended to be some of the gravel moved out of the tree protection zone. In the current plan, there is a decorative driveway coming in off of Cannon Street for the first few feet, let's call it 20 feet off of Cannon behind the sidewalk. You can see it goes the first on 116. It's the first parking space, and then you can see the actual line on 118 where the pavers would stop in that scenario. So with that said, the two trees in the rear are volunteer street tree. They are fence line trees, and we are requesting removal. They are protected because there is not enough trees on this lot, but with the green space, we intend to plant additional trees and follow staff recommendation.
So just to be,
Excellent.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, and this, line weights on this, but this is the proposed green space in here. So the driveway curves into basically the 118 parcel, and then Julia Martin is trying to create a really nice space here. This is still in TRC, so it's got a few hurdles, but they wanted to address the tree removals based on the position of the new structure.
Excellent. Ashley, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, sir. Other just to reiterate what Matt said, my husband and I's prayer is just really to bring this entire area back to its original glory. So definitely being extremely mindful of the green space and adding, probably even more than what is, the minimum requirement. Just we want to really make this beautiful. So thank you all for your time.
All right, thank you. And Eric, is there anybody registered that wants to speak for or against the application?
Mr. Chairman, we had nobody register to speak in support or in opposition.
Okay. Then we'll close the application to the public and we'll open it to the board for discussion and questions. And I'll start. I don't know if my slip of the lip was heard, but I was trying to turn the volume of my computer up and I turned it off and I dropped a little S-bomb. And so I apologize if that was heard. That's unprofessional. So with that, if anybody has anything they want to start with the application as far as discussion.
Well, when they said to bring it back to its former glory, does that mean that there were buildings back there originally? Because it's kind of making your own hardship. Not that I think they're great trees, I'm just asking the question.
I guess can we unmute Matt or the applicant and find out?
To the best of my knowledge, there were not structures in the rear of these lots prior to, I don't believe that there were structures in the rear of these lots.
Matt or Ashley, could you speak to where you are with BAR? I'm just curious myself.
I believe that Julia is working, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
I believe that Julia is working through BAR. They are, I think that, Ashley, you may be able to speak to that a little bit, but I think that they have gotten conceptual, is that correct? There's been submitted for conceptual and comments on that, or is it, are we getting the approvals for that?
And I apologize. Julia had a schedule conflict tonight, or she would have been on this call as well. I believe that is correct, Matt. I'm not for sure. I know that we've got TRC tomorrow morning. I'm not exactly sure where we are on the process. I mean, I know that we are moving through it and Julia has been working incredibly hard with this. I will say, I believe I pulled all the old Sanborn fire maps, and I believe that there was something back there before, but again, I'm not positive. Just to answer the lady's question, and I could possibly text Julia and see though.
Eric, would you take us back to your recommendation sheet, please?
Yes. So again, one is a mulberry and one is a laurel oak that has a strange bow to it, as shown there.
No, I don't care about that.
Because they're just protected trees and they can't maintain the 15 trees per acre on a lot that is going to be greater than 4 units. We drop down to 8-inch diameter trees, and the ordinance requires that 2.5-inch trees per protected tree removed be planted. So that's a total of 5 per tree. So a total of 10 inches. Certified arborist is the grand elm tree.
I'm good with all that.
And then the driveway's surface system.
Yeah, this is the one that gives me pause, just because of some clarity issues here. Use a non-invasive. Is that non-invasive pervious? Is that defined anywhere in the zoning code or anything? Or
no, Andrew, that's my term, and what I
get it. But you see what I'm getting at. I mean,
what I mean by non-invasive, we can't do any excavation for the driveway materials.
And I agree. I think that's important.
Right.
And I think it needs to be pervious. I mean, I really think it should be limited to mulch, gravel, shell. I really don't know what else you could possibly use there.
Right.
I can't think of anything else that would suffice. But I think we need to clarify number 3 a little bit. Now, whether we do that in the motion or you want to take another stab at that, either way, I'm fine with that. Just let me know.
You guys could just further, express what you're looking for, exactly as you stated: shell, gravel, mulch.
Well, then I can make a motion if y'all are ready, or if people want to discuss it further, I'm fine with that as well.
I think I'm fine. I know that I think it's a very nice plan. I like the fact we're going to keep the tree in the middle.
All Oh, well, then I would make a motion that we approve with city staff with a little more clarity on item 3, where the pervious driveway has to be either shredded hardwood mulch, crushed gel, or gravel, with absolutely no excavation on the system in the protected root zone.
I second it.
All right. So we have motion by Mr. Hargit for approval with staff conditions expanding on item 3 to where he mentions a few materials and no excavation in the tree protection zone, seconded by Ms. Postel, and I'll go through the roll. Ms. Barton,
When you say, I sort of wanted the gravel clarified a little better to make sure it didn't mean a packed in plantation mix. So I wasn't really ready to vote on it.
okay.
But I don't consider plantation mix gravel. Do you, Andrew?
I actually do.
Okay.
I mean, I think from a bearing standpoint, I mean, what you're looking at here is bearing on the tree. And I understand your hesitancy because of water infiltration. But plantation mix does a good job of absorbing water and releasing it back into the soil. It just takes more time than gravel, where it just actually pours through.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have any, from a tree health standpoint, I really don't have any issue with it.
Okay. Okay. Then I in favor.
Okay, excellent. Ms. Postel,
I in favor.
Ms. Murphy,
I in favor.
there we go. Excellent. Mr. Hargit,
I in favor.
Mr. Webb,
I in favor.
and Chairman Adrian says aye in favor. So it also is unanimous, 6-0 approved. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oop. All right, so our next item on the agenda is going to be item B3, and that is 1800 Produce Lane. TMS numbers are 313-0000-152 and 158. I believe the application number will be 2011-04-B3. It is request a special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Request a variance from section 54-327 to omit the 15 protected trees per acre requirement. And request a variance from section 54-347 to allow a reduction in width of a required landscape buffer zoned GB.
You are correct. Application number 2011-04-B3. This is the application. Hoyt Barini, engineer record, split their variance case answers to the variance and special exception. So this is the first letter addressing the buffer. This is addressing the tree. So we're not quite up to speed with our GIS, but the property highlighted here, as well as some others in the back, but I included, because this fronts on Maybank, these 2 properties. We're in the final platting stage of a subdivision, which carved out a commercial lot on the frontage of Maybank. And then the rear portion and others is some stormwater facilities and single family detached lots. But they wanted to get rolling with the project. So the roads are in, the infrastructure is in. So I apologize for this. It's not quite up to par, but it had an address of 18 Produce Lane. This is pre-construction, obviously. Grand trees only were preserved in the single family detached subdivision, and some other smaller vegetation was removed up on the frontage, but some were retained. So this is their application package. This is the title sheet. This is the site. And you can see that the road was shifted basically to the east. Produce Lane was further west originally. They moved it east. It has a little bit of curvature in it. They retained the commercial lot out front. And then you can see the start of the single family lots. Please note the drainage easement, that kind of diagonal is a diagonal configuration across the GB zone lot. And then what appears to be like a pond where that easement ends. So the western back half is stormwater facilities behind the single family lots. That's important when we talk about the buffer in just a moment. This exhibit shows where the grand tree adjacent to Maybank sits. It's a water oak. And then there are several protected trees along the edge. You can just make out some X's there. Note the wetland on the west side. There's a wetland below that dashed line, which is, so the grading that occurred retained the wetland, and the GB lot was built up just a tad bit. And then you can see the ponds to the south. This is the letter that Natural Directions submitted, 24.5. It's got showing some decay and decline. It's basically just behind the roadside ditch along Maybank Highway. Double leader. Residual protected trees just inside the property line. These are my photos. So there again, the water oak and other protected trees. So I blew up this section of the ordinance. So when you have GB zone property against single family detached, you're required to have a 25-foot type D buffer. That is going to be provided adjacent to the house lot, as you can see in the green bar. But due to the programming of the building, trying to get the necessary depth to have anything that's marketable, and then the required parking with the already set curb cut set by the city that far back from the intersection of Produce Lane and Maybank, you can see that they have a circular one-way angled parking system with the dumpster. And again, those features are against the grand tree that was retained by the stormwater facility. So it's not really going to impact a resident. Again, just a blow up of that area. So it's about a 18 to 20 foot encroachment, retaining, 5-foot strip behind the angle parking and behind the dumpster enclosure. This is a view looking back. So again, the building pad and then the stormwater facilities that the encroachment would be up against. So with that said, a water oak only requires 50% of the DBH inches removed, so must plant 12 caliber inches of recommended native canopy trees on the project site. Must plant trees, palms, canopy, shrubs in the soil volume in the reduced buffer area, as well as meeting the requirements in the full buffer width next to the single family lot, and must have a landscape plan approved by both TRC and DRB. And with that said, I'll go back to the overall plan. And we need to identify Mr. George Revis is with us tonight, and Kyle Taylor.
Yeah, hey guys, this is Kyle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, if you and George can hear me, I'll swear both of you in, and then you can start your presentation. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I do. This is George.
Okay, thank you. Kyle, if you're going to start, if you just state your name and address for the record. And Let us know if you have anything you need to add.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks, guys. This is Kyle Taylor with Hoyt and Brainy. We're the civil and landscape architect on the project here at the corner of the new and improved Produce Lane and Maybank Highway. I think Eric did a great job just going through the overview of the project. It's currently going through closeout for the roadway construction and dedication to the city and getting the subdivided property lines recorded. We've made our initial submittals to TRC and DRB and gone through those initial review processes. We anticipate going back in front of the DRB hopefully very soon. As you guys heard on another application, it can sometimes take numerous reviews to get the initial conceptual approval. But we feel good about our project. Really the only point, maybe 2 points that I'll add concerning the front tree removal. We'll also be providing sidewalk per the ordinance. So that also is another challenge with any attempt to retain the trees along the right of way. And then probably one of the biggest points of the project is the sites within the Johns Island settlement plan, one of the 3 gathering place zones. And so that sort of helps support the program that we've developed, and the site is already pad ready for the building against the right of way. And then we've done our best to create what we think customers will benefit from, having full circulation and having adequate parking to support the businesses to get around the site, as opposed to having a dead end circulation vehicular program. So those are the 2 main points that I would add. And I don't know if George with the ownership group has anything else to add, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kyle. George, is there anything you'd like to add, or did you want to speak?
No, maybe the only thing I'd like to add is originally the dumpster location was on the sort of northeast part of the property. And after meetings with the city, it was decided that it would be better to get it away from, even though it was out of the buffer, it would be better to get it away from A, Produce Lane, and B, the residential houses to the south. Hence the new location, and another reason why we're asking for this variance.
All right, thank you. And George, if you just state your name and full address.
Sure, George Revis. I have a bit of a strange address, but my address is Chachalaca 45, Sayulita, Nayarit in Mexico.
All right, thank you. Eric, was anybody signed up to speak in favor or against the application?
Mr. Chairman, nobody registered to speak in favor or opposition. And I'd like to just add to Kyle's point. A lot of effort went into the Johns Island Community Plan. Obviously, Produce Lane is within 1,000 feet or so of the intersection of River and Maybank. It is in the town section of our town and country corridor, if you will. So this section is to be a little more urban in character. And of course, you would ask, well, isn't there a buffer along Maybank Highway? Well, yes, there is, but this is a zone that DRB has the authority to allow a building to encroach into that required buffer without a variance. So it is going to take on more of an urban feel here as that intersection begins to redevelop.
Okay, thank you, Eric. If nobody is registered to speak on the application, then we're going to close this application to the public, and it'll be open to the board for any questions or discussion.
So when we looked at this before, and I recall looking at the pond, and I recall looking at the road, and that there was going to be the commercial out parcel, so to speak, up at the front. We looked at tree removals in that. Were there trees removed from what is now going to be the commercial parcel then? I just can't recall.
Yeah, a matter of fact, there was a little causeway that it was a driveway And I call it a causeway because there was, I believe, and George can remind me if I'm incorrect, but there was like wetlands on either side. It was very swampy on either side of the causeway, hence through the subdivision and the stormwater design. And you can see how they retained a little bit of the wetland on the west side. So this lot did get, they got the permits to do that work associated with the subdivision, and they, as Kyle mentioned, they basically prepped the future building pad.
So it's a tree that could have been included in the original site work package we looked at.
Well, it was unknown to exactly what was going to happen here. I mean,
Yeah.
the city wanted to, was in favor of retaining the commercial lot out front instead of having residential property come all the way up to Maybank, and it
I
was
remember that.
it was in the town section of the vision for the future of this intersection, and so yeah, it was unknown at the time what would occur there.
Oh yeah, I'm just trying to recall what, we
Right.
looked at a lot of stuff.
Right.
So Eric, as part of that landscape buffer, is there a 6-foot fence requirement?
There is not. A fence is permitted in a buffer, but it is not a requirement. Our buffer types speak specifically to canopy trees, understory trees, and buffer shrubs.
Okay.
I see where Joel's going, and I agree with that, because I mean, those people might or might not have fenced yards, and I don't know if the developer's planning on fencing those yards for the houses, but I think looking at the back of a commercial establishment like that and looking at the dumpster, one recommendation could be that it could either be both, the entire line could have a fence running down it, but we allow the encroachment into the buffer of the parking and everything. I don't know if that's something, I don't know if that's something DRB would be looking at also, because it's on the back side.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Just running a fence down the fence line. And then
Down
they
the
can
common property line, down the common.
Yeah.
property line.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have to seek encroachment from stormwater to cross that drainage easement, but I think that would, depending on the style and the detailing of the fence, I think that could be worked out. You can see that they're trying to put a little bit of surface parking lot over that easement as well.
Yep.
In the driveway.
Okay. And all in all, I'm pretty pleased with the application. I think it works. I think that it meets the test and can be approved. I do think that if we could give a little extra protection from the residential to the parking lot and the structure, it might be helpful.
So I'll make a motion. Could you put the recommendations back up, Eric? Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve with staff recommendations and conditions. And we add to number 4 that we'll put in a 6-foot privacy fence running down that common property line, including, all the way to the end of it, including through that drainage easement and down through the, to that property.
Just for clarity's sake, Amanda, are you saying it has to run from the entire buffer plus the area that they're encroaching in, or just the encroachment area?
I was thinking the entire area, the whole line, from
Produce Lane.
Yep, from Produce Lane, down to stopping, basically where you're seeing the dash line where it says buffer provided wetlands, stopping right in there.
I guess you could start it where the screen wall is, where it says screen wall C architecture. If it started there and follow that property line down.
I was going to point that out and note that.
Yes, yes. That would work.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
One quick question, does that run across the easement, what we're proposing?
So can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Right, so here's the proposed screen wall. I don't know if that was called out by DRB or not, or they were just proposing that. Kyle could maybe speak to that. But what you're saying is the wall would, the screen would pick here and run down to here. And maybe it ties into the dumpster enclosure for a bit, and then they'd have to get the encroachment permit over the easement here, which they're already proposing to put driveway and parking over. So I don't know if a fence would be that big of a deal.
Yeah, it may not be. I just don't want to, maybe we can, make that conditional, and I guess if they can't obtain that approval, then I don't think we could,
But
hold them to that.
But maybe it could be something, since they own this property, maybe, maybe it comes and makes a, angles parallel to the drainage easement in there for, whatever feet, just to screen, to give that screening, and then you pick it back up on the far side of the easement would be one way to, I'm just thinking about not, looking into nobody wants to look in the back of a commercial building from residential.
Yeah.
But it gives that.
Hey guys, this is Kyle. Is this a portion where I'm able to converse?
I think so, because there's a question asked about the screen wall.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth talking about alternatives too. We will be proposing a minimum 5-foot landscape border adjacent to all of the parking areas, and that includes hedge shrubs, a canopy tree, approximately every 25 to 30 feet, understory trees, and we will be doing the full type D screening in that green zone, which by itself satisfies the zoning ordinance. And then I will just note too that the residential will actually be facing a side of the building that's designed to kind of be the front of the building. It's sort of got two fronts just based on how you do, it's kind of like Daniel Island, the buildings on Daniel Island, the meters are going to be outside of view, not on either of those two sides of the building. So both sides are going to be what we believe to be very appealing. So I think it's worth noting that we will be providing some landscape vegetation against the parking. So it's not going to be sort of like the back of, say, a grocery store or anything of that nature. I just want to be sensitive to providing a wall all along a property line, especially through a stormwater easement. And the screen wall that we're providing at the front's going to be lower than 6 feet. That's going to be 3 or 4 feet to screen the parking area from the right of way. So 6 feet, I'm just kind of thinking, a full grown person, being head height met with a wall, kind of takes away the appeal from the views of the pond and the access to the pond as well. So I just want to note that and see if there's a way we could achieve the screening with vegetation, perhaps in lieu of some type of 6-foot tall wall.
All right, thank you, Kyle. We'll close the public again, and before we vote on the motion, we'll have discussion.
Well, I think Kyle brings up an interesting point. I mean, I'd be okay with it being like a 3-foot or 4-foot, whatever, in that green zone. But I think I agree with Amanda. I mean, from that back pinpoint where they're increasing in the buffer, I think that needs to be a 6-foot solid fence, because nobody wants to see those cars parked there or anything else. I mean,
but that I'm sorry if I'm not following that. The reduction in buffer is in the red area or the red clouded area, and that's against a pond.
The pond's to the right, yeah.
I don't see what you're buffering there. The view across the pond.
What Amanda's saying is, if you're in one of those 3 lots and you're looking, I can't remember what direction it is, but I think it's southwest, then you're looking at those cars. that are
So,
parked at that
vision-
angle, right?
Vision a house in here, you got the grand tree that was retained and then the ponds. So right in here would be the dumpster and some parking.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I think I agree that, you know, if I owned one of those lots, 33, 32, 31, I wouldn't want to, I mean, the building might look nice, but I don't want to see all the cars. If we've got to provide a screen wall from the right of way of the street, then we should consider making sure we've got a proper screen from the residential to that same parking lot.
And I don't mean to say like, either way, I don't care if it's 6 foot all the way or if it's lower in the green zone. But once the green zone ends, I think you need to go up to 6 foot. That's my thought. You know, because then that'll preserve a few views to the pond. But when cars are parked there, they don't need to see the pond. That's ridiculous.
But you're probably, I would assume we're going to have a 7 foot or high enclosure around that dumpster pad, right?
That is correct. The dumpster requires a enclosure with operable gates. That will be up to DRB on materials and the height.
Yeah, so I think we got to play off of that and protect the or screen the cars parking lot.
Yep.
So I do think I would agree with Andrew that maybe it starts out lower to tie into that screen wall at the street a little better and then steps up.
But it could still be a similar,
Material.
style of fence, and I think that we have to give them some flexibility to work with staff as to, if we need to, if we can't go over the entire drainage easement or, I think they'll have to be able to work with staff on that, and there's ways to be clever with that. So do I need to rephrase or not?
I think you can amend the motion.
Okay, then I will amend the motion that the northeastern, is that northeastern? The
Southeastern.
Hmm?
Southeastern.
Okay, yeah. The part next to the buffer that will be installed can be a low wall, a low fence of 3 or 4 feet. But when it goes into the area that is being requested for the variance, that it would go up to a 6 foot fence.
Okay. So that motion would be approval with staff conditions, adding condition number 4 for the fence. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Ms. Barton, seconded by Mr. Hargett. And I will do the roll. Ms. Barton,
Aye, in favor.
Ms. Postel,
I in favor.
Ms. Murphy,
I in favor.
Mr. Hargett,
Aye, in favor.
Mr. Webb,
Aye, in favor.
and Mr. Adrian is also aye in favor. So that is approved 6-0 unanimous. Thank you.
Curious, Jeff, what happened to the finger? Engineers don't usually whack themselves.
Yeah, slammed it in a door.
Oh, ouch. Those hurt too.
I keep waiting for it to fall off.
Oh,
Eric, I need to recuse myself from this last one.
So are you just going to leave the meeting in entirety or do you want to come back again?
If I can hang on and listen, I've got Spencer Plowden from my office is going to be on, and the architect Simmons Chase should be on as well to answer questions.
All right. So Joel, for the record, just state that Jeff.
Okay. All right. So our next item is item B4, and for the record, Mr. Jeff Webb has recused himself from this application. The application is 98 Wentworth Street. That TMS number is 457-0401-029. And that application number should be 2011-04-B4. We are requesting a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. Request a variance from section 54-327 to omit the 15 protected trees per acre requirement. And request a variance from section 54-347 to allow the reduction in the width of the landscape buffer zoned LB and DR1F.
Application number 2011-04-B4. This is the application for 98 Wentworth Street. The justification for variance. Property located at the corner of Glebe and Wentworth. Zoned LB with maybe a dash of DR1F that creeps over the property line. Grace Church Cathedral, Sunday school buildings, admin buildings. Note the playground. That's the tan area, if you will. They have a day school and they have a playground, and what they're planning to do is remove that building west of the playground and do an infill project. So here you have the site plan. So the wonderful courtyard close to Glebe will be retained. The parking lot on the north side of this exhibit will be partially removed and the playground relocated to the west end of that existing parking lot, maintaining a few spaces with a slight reduction in the driveway width, which is not an issue for us tonight. And then the blue tree is a live oak, and we'll discuss that live oak. It's growing basically on the common property line with property owned and operated by the College of Charleston. And then a few protected trees growing along a common fence line. And then the 5-foot landscape strip, as you see in purple on the west side. Note the property line is kind of west of that fence line, and they have an agreement with the college where they can use the ingress-egress drive off of Wentworth across their property, and then they park at a 90-degree against that fence line. So that would be on the west side of the proposed new infill building. This is the live oak. You know, it's a BC. The only reason it is a maybe more to the C grade is because it has a it doesn't have a symmetrical crown. It's been competing with other vegetation, and it really leans to the south over the open parking lot. As you can see, my vehicle, and then the majority of the crown reached for light. Obviously the sun, you know, traverses east to west on the south side, and the crown really grew out that way versus being symmetrical. This is the view of the existing drive next to the existing building to be demolished. And then that fence line, you've got a combination of hackberry, elm, pecan, volunteer type trees growing along that fence line. This is a view with my back to the west looking east. So where that vehicle sits today will be playground space, and then the 5 or 6 spaces where the sunlight is shining will be, you know, they have to get some turnaround, a better drive aisle, if you will, because you can't flow through the project anymore. They're on a slight angle. You can't drive to where my back is through the site. So they have to creep into that 5-foot landscape strip by removing the crepe myrtles. Staff recommends approval. Must plant 47 caliber inches of recommended native canopy trees on the site. It's going to be very tough to do that. So whatever we can't get on site, they can make up in the form of a monetary contribution to the city street tree program. Must use 4-foot chain link fence as, boy, I really did not use my spell check. Tree protection barricades for remaining trees. Must have the live oaks on the west side of the project treated by a certified arborist. I'll go back. And then whatever we can get in the soil volume between the back of the parking and the existing masonry wall, whether palms or Italian cypress in that reduced landscape strip would be a requirement. So the two larger green circles are in landscape islands on the west side of the proposed building. And so they're on the west side of the existing fence, and they're in landscape islands in that parking area. And they're very nice. And we might just have to tip shape a little bit of crown that creeps over the fence when they build the building. But that's where I speak of the certified arborist treating those trees. And then, of course, they want to maintain the existing parking on the college parcel, if you will. So do nothing really in that purple line, but just because the project requires that at property lines, when you have institutional use against DR zone property, which the college is zoned, but they will be doing really nothing in that purple zone on the west side because of the existing parking and turnaround space and what have you. So it's really the north line by the parking that's going to be retained by the playground, and we want to try and get some kind of evergreen material in there. And then the mitigation, they may be able to find some plantable area, tree or two in the playground to shade the playground, but we'll rely on a landscape plan to be submitted, and then the residual inches in a form contribution to the city street tree program. So with that said, we have Simmons Young, architect of record, and I believe Spencer Plowden with ADC. You want to unmute those, Scott? Simmons, can you hear us yet? Simmons and Spencer, unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me? This is Simmons.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Joel, you have.
All right. So Simmons and Spencer, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Excellent. Simmons, I guess the floor is yours if you'd state your name and address and let us know if there's anything you'd like to add.
I'm actually going to hand it to Spencer. He's with ADC that has done most of the work. But
Okay.
for the record, my name is Simmons Young, 133 Bufane Street, Charleston, South Carolina, 29403.
Excellent.
And my name is Spencer Plowden with ADC. We're the civil on the site. My address is 650 Enterprise Boulevard, Charleston, South Carolina. In regards to the project, obviously we're expanding. We're mirroring the other side of the building, and I think that Eric did a really good job of explaining the site. So I would like to leave it and say I'm open to any kind of questions that you guys have.
Okay, thank you. Eric, is there anybody registered to speak for or against the application?
Mr. Adrian, nobody signed up to speak in favor or oppose the project.
Okay, then we will close this application to the public and we'll open it up to the board for questions and discussion.
Spencer, can you explain to me the hardship, please?
The hardship of the grand tree.
Yeah, the other ones I'm good with. It's the live 27-inch live oak at the rear. I mean, I'm just looking at it from a non-biased perspective. If this was a commercial entity that wanted more square footage to sell more apartments, why, what's the hardship?
Yes. So from our side of the things, the church did acquire this land several years ago, and in thought of an expansion, they ended up spending the money more on the foundation of the church. We are as far as the 27-inch oak, we also we're viewing it almost as another volunteer tree, as Eric was stating, for the hackberries and all the others, because it is growing along the property line, and it was not directly planted by the church. So that is just another way that we were looking at that tree that was along the property line. It is unfortunate that we cannot keep it with the design of the expansion because of such of a small site. You know, even with the additional land.
Simmons, maybe you want to speak to the programming internal to the church. I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. So on the inside, we're very excited about this building. The church has recently become the cathedral of the Episcopal Diocese of South Carolina. So there is a need to provide more space for the parish hall. Additionally, the administrative and clergy offices are currently in 115 Wentworth Street, which is sort of diagonally across the street. That building has been reviewed by a structural engineer, and you may have driven by it and seen some scaffolding that's going to be there. And for quite some time, the church was given the option to repair that building, which they are not interested in using because of that expense, or dedicate that money towards this new building. So the scaffolding's there temporarily, and the administration and clergy are moving into this space, the second floor of the space, and then the first floor is the proposed new parish hall for its new status as cathedral, and then also the growing congregation.
I have a question for the applicant. I'm assuming that you've discussed the tree removal with the College of Charleston, and they're in favor of the removal?
No, the college is not, since it's not on their property, we have not discussed it with them. We'd be glad to do that as a condition if that's of interest. Of course, it's been difficult for everyone to communicate recently, in person at least, but the main function of the college, sort of shared lots, are the right-of-ways to get traffic in and out of there. And then the college also has a, what is sort of a power line or a power tunnel that runs from their central plant down to Glen McConnell, that's underneath the church's few parking spaces on the west side of the building. So we're all mixed up together, and certainly are going to be working with them.
And we're correct in thinking that the building on the left that's in the slightly darker outline, that's similar in size to the existing 2L, so to speak, that entire thing is all new construction, right?
That is almost correct. So there's a very small portion of it to the upper right-hand side of just where you were, Eric. Right in there, yep. That is an existing choir room with a drive-through beneath it. So that one little portion is existing.
So basically the building could be not that close to the live oak.
Programmatically, I don't think we could get what we are trying to get. The BAR is we've taken this through BAR conceptual. It's moved the building, I think 10 feet to the left. So the program has shrunk that way, and we've reduced it in height. So there's a couple constraints that would be problematic trying to push the building forward and get it also to be in the realm of acceptability for that review board, I think.
Simmons, I did not measure the distance off that fence line, but that crown stretches how many approximate feet south to give
this is operating more from memory than from actual feet, but I would say 15 or 20 feet if I had to guess.
Right.
That's
So
about right to you.
Right. For the board members, it's one thing to see our protection zone shown on this exhibit, but the crown, as you can see in the lower photograph above my vehicle, stretches quite a bit. So I would think you would lose quite a bit of building.
Right.
And I think Simmons was speaking to this line here. If you follow my cursor, is that portico type thing that you drive through now, but that's being retained, I guess. Is that correct?
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's being infilled, but yes, so there's a building footprint there.
Right. So all this is, I have an idea, and I just want to throw this out, but we had a pretty significant tree be removed on the peninsula recently here, and the contractor that took it down worked out a deal, and they delivered the wood to the Simmons Art Center, which is not too far from here. It's off of St. Philip. So maybe this wood could be repurposed and given to the college as a condition. It's just an idea.
Can we see a picture of the hackberry, the elm and the pecan?
So hackberry, elm, pecan, and then something else in there I can't quite remember. This was not 8 inches, but you had a hackberry here. This was definitely the elm. You can almost see the V shape, and then a pecan. They had it as hack, elm, pecan.
And personally, I'm fine with the hackberry and the elms. The live oak is giving me cause for some consternation. I mean, I don't see what's extraordinary about the conditions of this property that, I mean, here we have an urban tree that's done well. I heard what you said, Eric, about live oak. The reason it's a C grade is because it's not symmetrical. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I'm not picking on you.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Live oaks aren't symmetrical. They're not bald cypress. They're not poplars. They're never symmetrical. So it doesn't matter. It looks healthy. I get it. I'm just having a hard time with the hardship. I don't get it. I mean, if this was a commercial property and they said, hey, we want more square footage so we can sell more units, we'd be like, no. But because it's a church, we're supposed to think differently. I'm having a hard time swallowing that. Those are my thoughts.
Do you think it is something that maybe we should defer and see if there's any way for that program to be reworked in that back area? I think the bigger question really is
I think we certainly should. Yeah, I think that 27-inch live oak is, worthy. I think that is something that they need to consider, and not just say, hey, we need the space. If anybody else said that, we'd be like, that's ridiculous.
Well, the BAR had to move the building west, and that's accurate, correct? Simmons or?
That is accurate.
But
So
that's not site design. You yourself, Amanda, are constantly discussing that the BAR is over pushing this stuff.
Well, it goes back to the whole thing when you're on the peninsula, sometimes why are we even looking at this stuff if we really just sort of get bulldozed, right?
Right. That's my thoughts. And I honestly, I really don't see those changing.
Did we have an arborist letter on this one?
We did not. You know, it's a live oak. I agree with Andrew that live oaks twist and turn and seek light and what have you. But you know, I just gave it that BC grade because it wasn't symmetrical, but it's a healthy tree.
I think the toughest thing is that the height of the canopy and the reach of it, which Eric mentioned. So the question becomes, how far away, how severely does this proposed footprint, where it says proposed church parish hall addition, how much of that has to disappear in order for that tree to remain? But I agree with Andrew. I think that, you know, we could certainly request further study. Maybe it's getting an arborist to do an evaluation of the tree. Maybe it's getting the canopy of the tree actually surveyed so we can see the impact of it, get an idea of heights of limbs, if there's a way to reduce some of that canopy and still keep the tree. Maybe just a little extra exploration is necessary.
I was kind of going where you guys are too, because my guess is that the college probably has maybe also has pruned things that overhang on their side of that fence.
It appears that way from that
Yeah,
picture.
it looks like it to me too. So we could defer for further study. What does everybody think?
And then my only other question would be is, you know, do we approve the other things that they are asking for? Because I don't have any issue with those, but I do have a huge issue, and I'm still not sure what the, you know, the 4 tests, I don't see it there.
If I may, I like that idea. Take it item by item, and if you all agree on what you're speaking of relative to the live oak, move forward with that.
I think so too. And I think instead of just saying a denial, let's do a deferral on the live oaks. That gives them an opportunity to restudy and come back if necessary. But I think we could approve the other items that were requested.
I don't have a problem with that.
I agree with that strategy.
Someone want to make that motion? Eric, I guess you'd need to put the conditions up, or the application up.
Oh, and the other thing, if those Italian cypress are going to be put in front of a fence, then, you know, in my opinion, you might as well not plant them, because they do not do well when they don't have good air circulation. They're a Mediterranean plant, and
They don't do well here at all.
they're very marginal
Red
here.
spiders get into them, and
Yep.
you know, once they get big, nobody sprays them.
And then they have nasty.
Yeah, nobody
Right.
sprays them once they get big, because they're not going to spend the money.
So I think that well, that what's replaced there would be part of the oak approval, not part of the, was that a special exception on the,
A variance to reduce the
they're all variants, okay.
landscape strip.
To be honest, there, I think there's a cedar that's really narrow.
Okay.
I can't think of the name of it right now off the top of my head. It's not Brody. It's like, I want to say it's like Thomas or Thomasville or something like that, but I honestly can't remember. But we had 3 of them on the side of the chapel. The problem is they were bent and reaching for the light because they were in too much shade. But if they were in full sun, they'd be perfect for this application. But I don't remember the exact cultivar.
Yeah, they definitely have southern exposure here.
Right.
Right, and light from the west.
And then you don't have red spiders and on the spraying and the love and affection that you need to give Italian cypress.
Yeah, I just don't see, I've never seen them do well here unless they're totally And then they still don't do well when they get older, but if they don't have enough air. And if it's a wet season, so.
Agreed.
So this is what I think the motion should be. I'm not gonna say it's the motion. Unless, Andrew, if you'd like to make it.
No, I'm good.
Okay. I make a motion that we request restudy and have an arborist look at the live oak. And I say we approve the variance, the 2 variances with staff recommendations, with more study on that, on the buffer plant materials with staff.
So
All
why
right.
don't, if I could suggest, why don't we number these requests 1, 2, 3 in order and
Okay.
address number 1, please, first, and then 2 and 3 together.
Okay, so
Could
I'm
you-
not making the motion.
you
I'm
Eric,
just-
Or-
will you put the screen up with your recommendations?
Yeah, because the conditions are going to change because I added the 27-inch live oak plus the 20 inches for the protected trees. So this total number of caliber inches will change. It will be just 4 5s is 20. So 20 inches for the protected trees.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think it's, Amanda, it's probably just making a motion for item B 4.1 and to defer that application, which is the removal of the grand tree. And then we vote on that, and then we do B 4.2, 4.3.
okay, that's fine, that's fine. So I move that we defer item B4-1 for further study of the building and to have an arborist look at that tree.
All right. So is there a second to that motion
Second.
of deferral? So seconded by Paula. Motion by Amanda. So I'll go through the roll. Ms. Barton,
Aye, in favor.
Postel,
I in favor.
Ms. Murphy,
I in favor.
Mr. Hargit,
I in favor.
and Mr. Adrian is aye in favor. So that is a 5-0 unanimous decision to defer the removal request of the large grand tree. Is there a motion for B4-2?
Well, B4-2, can we go back to the,
Application.
yeah, and
To omit the 15 trees per acre and allow the reduction in that landscape strip.
okay.
We can lump those two together. You can say B 4.2 and 4.3.
Right, I would recommend that. And then the condition number 1 would just be altered to 20 inches.
Yeah. Like it.
So are we calling, so that was B4-1.
No, yeah, so we're gonna do a motion for B 4-2 and 4-3, which is gonna be a motion to approve with staff conditions. Changing item 1 to 20 inches of recommended replacement tree instead of 47
And that's gonna be B4-2.
and 3. We're just gonna lump those two together.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. So I make a motion that we approve B4-2 and 3 to be, must plant 20 caliper inches of recommended native canopy trees on the project site and or in the form of monetary contribution to the city's street tree program. That they must use 4-foot chain link fences, tree protection barriers. And the live oaks on the west side of the project treated by a certified arborist.
Second that.
All right, so that motion is also by Amanda and seconded by Andrew. And so we'll go through the the roll on that. Ms. Barton,
I in favor.
Ms. Postel,
I in favor.
Ms. Murphy,
I in favor.
Mr. Hargit,
I in favor.
and Mr. Adrian is also aye in favor. That's approved 5-0 unanimous. So thank you for your time. That's it. We are done.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you,
Eric,
guys.
I'll send you that variety next week. I'm
What's
out
that?
the rest. I'll send you the cultivars next week.
Nice. Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
out the rest of the week.
I'll do some research on them. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. All right.
Very good.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, you all too.